And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another or first victorious edition of Hoosier Morning After of the season. This is Hoosier Morning After Siue. That's going to be a struggle throughout the show. Bear with me as I try to get that. Might just end up being SIU. But your Indiana Hoosiers on the late ticket last night go on to win 80-61. Improving to an undefeated season so far, 1-0 for the Hoosiers. Lots of sloppy moments in this one. Some good defensive and some good rebounding to kind of start the game. Got IU up to about a 10-point lead of 19-9. Then after the oh-so-dreaded hockey lineup switch that we've seen before, minus Miles Rice still being in there, things started to fall apart. Effort on defense, ball watching, just a cohesion was not there for a few moments, letting SIUE back into the game, tying it at 27. Then we had McKenzie kind of continue to take over and have the career night that he did, with some, along with some great on-ball defense by Carlisle at the end of the half, tightens things up for IU. Second half also had its ups and downs, as well as with moments of SIUE kind of getting back into the game, or at least still feeling a little bit of alive in this game. But in the end, it was a lot of that defensive pressure and McKenzie just having the career game that he did for IU that settled this game for Indiana. And a game where it's clear that this team is still looking for their chemistry. A lot of new pieces, a lot of things to still work with, a lot of kind of chemistry that will come, and knowledge of each other, where each other's players are going to be, what they're going to be doing, will eventually help the cohesion and things look a little less sloppy. This is going to be kind of that game, that show where it's going to seem like I'm saying catchphrases the whole time. It's going to feel like I'm constantly saying that it's the first game. And I'm not ready to jump ship on a lot of these issues that we saw, but good game to get some tape for the coaches in this game, to go back and study with the players and them to find where the weaknesses are, where they should be, how they should react in different situations. So alarms aren't going off yet, but obviously some things to have a slight concerned thumb on and to look at in the future to see if any patterns emerge. But as of right now, we will just take it with a grain of salt as we do. Thank you for being here with us. I am your host, Chad Schwarzkopf. Here with me is Martha, the mop lady, to break down this game and talk it through. Martha, your kind of thoughts on last night's game?
I think sloppy, like you said, is going to be the recurring word of last night's effort. I think it's also important to keep in mind that a season ago, Indiana opened the season up with a 6-point win over Florida Gulf Coast, and Florida Gulf Coast was missing their best player. Florida Gulf Coast is I think probably a much better team than SIU Edwardsville, but I think it's important just to keep some of that perspective in mind. That doesn't make up for some of the sloppiness we saw, but I think the sloppiness that we saw last night can't really be unexpected. You've got a roster of so many new faces, right? 3 or 4 new starters, and this is the second or third time that they've had a chance to play somebody other than themselves. It's one thing to practice all summer together. It's one thing, to have some scrimmages against low-level competition, and going down to Tennessee, we can't forget about that, and getting the win down there. There's going to be some of this early in the season. End of the day, Indiana found a way to win by 19 points. It was ugly along the way, and I think we're, for a while, we're going to be haunted by what we've seen, in the last couple seasons, specifically offensively, where things just look, we'll say it, sloppy, right? Sloppy is the recurring word. And until things don't look sloppy, I think we're always going to have in the back of our head, man, this still isn't fixed. But I think this could just be a lot of new faces. We've got some guys that haven't hit their stride. I mean, you look at Luke, and we'll go through these guys, but like Luke Goody and Cannon Carlisle, just guys that haven't really hit their stride in this offense yet. And I think it shows, and it comes out in some of the sloppiness that we've seen. So end of the day, you get a 19-point win against competition that you should win rather easily. I think you take it, but ultimately you look at Coach Woodson's comments about needing to be better in specific areas, and you put some trust there that they'll keep working and figure it out. And you've got these early games for a reason, and hopefully we come out cleaner in the next game. But yeah, it was sloppy, but there certainly were some highlights. And end of the day, you get a 19-point win, so you take it and move forward.
Yep. This is kind of one of those games as a fan, you've got to learn to, you notice the bad, but you got to put more emphasis on the good, because the good is things that are great to see early in the season, and to see a team be able to continue and things that are going to sustain a lot more than the bad is going to this early in the season. And one of those good things that was a little bit of both was the defense in this matchup. A real Jekyll and Hyde situation. We've said that phrase many times on this show. There were moments where the ball screen defense got IU stuck in bad rotations. Lots of moments of just ball watching. McKenzie, who will obviously talk about his career thing, fell back into old habits that he's had before in the last season, where he would be stuck ball watching and his man would cut behind him, and he just looked like a lost freshman. A few peaks of that from him, but along with times where they were just locked down and looked amazing. And a lot of that was spurred on by Carlisle's just great low stance, just up there in the grill of the ball handler. Unfortunately, SIUE got bailed out on a few of those from just Harry toss it at the basket. I believe there was especially two moments I can think of off the top of my head where that happened, by the lack of sure luck for IU after playing great defensively. But what I really like on that end wise, though, is having a guard that locks things down defensively like that from the start. And Carlisle and Rice is able to do this as well. We didn't see it as to the extent saw it from Carlisle, but it kind of infects that possession with the rest of the players. It kind of makes a lot of the other players around him that are out there playing D ratchet it down as well and play a little bit stronger on that possession. So that's great to see. And that's where he can contribute. And we'll get a little bit deeper in a second talking about Carlisle. But your kind of thoughts on the ups and downs of the defense.
Yeah, I think that was probably the most frustrating part for me. And I think it shored up a little bit in the second half. But obviously, a lot of our the ineptness on offense, turnovers and inability to get the ball in from sideline out of bounds plays and just a lot of turnovers, but which led, I think, some extra possessions, but also our inability to get a defensive rebound was just with our length. It's just that's the most frustrating part to me, because I mean, you see it, and I don't consider myself a great basketball mind, but when you look at our front court and when you look at our size and length and athleticism, it just comes off as kind of an effort thing. If you're letting a team, I think at one point in the first half, SIU Edwardsville was getting close to 48% or rebounding close to 48% of their missed shots. So half the time they were getting an offensive rebound, which to me is just absolutely unacceptable, right? You're just letting a bad team hang around due to a kind of a lack of effort or being out of position. And so it was frustrating, and it got better in the second half. But that's something that I think as a fan base we see, and like that's the same stuff as like that's just that's not lack of execution or new faces. That's just a being out of position and an effort thing. So I think that's the little stuff that can sometimes pile up and drive us nuts a little bit. But the good news was that we shorted up a little bit in the second half. It wasn't as glaring. I'm sure Coach got on them at halftime, but it's just that stuff that you want to see clean against a competition like this for the entire game. So it was frustrating to see that. But it was also a little bit reassuring to see us kind of shore it up a little bit as the game went on and kind of lock down when we needed to.
Yeah, IU was definitely the bigger team, and maybe some of that might have played into that as just overconfidence in their size, thinking they could easily get to it. So it was evident that SIUE definitely had that extra tick of effort on the board that IU didn't. And there were a few times as well that I will admit that I was watching it that they just got lucky bounces, and it would bounce just slightly over Ballo, despite him having good position and everything, and just goes to the player that he was boxing out. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that effort needs to be ratcheted up a little bit. And someone, though, that did have the effort and had the confidence last night was McKenzie with a career night for IU. Previously, his scoring high for IU was 24. He eclipsed that last night with 31 points, 13 for 17 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3, and 9 rebounds. So he was there crashing the glass a good amount, a lot more than he usually does. And just so efficient, being that 13 from 17 and 4 for 5 from 3. Obviously, we'd like to see that a few more 3-point shots at that kind of a fit for IU. But the biggest grief, as we spoke about earlier, was just a little bit of his defensive effort in this game. Just got caught too often ball watching, and then at the end of the game too, he ended with 4 fouls, which kind of shows that as well. He got switched off on some ball handlers that he struggled with, and fouling after being out of position or trying to get back to his man. So things that he'll clean up, and that's obviously net picking another otherwise fantastic performance by him. And I think a lot of this is due to his confidence being up and being there. Last year, at the beginning of the season, he looked like that freshman deer in headlights. The raw skill was there, but he felt a little lost of where he needed to be. Head jutting around, looking, trying to see where he needed to be, especially on the defensive end. And we saw that confidence start to show itself at the end of the year, and we are seeing it carry over now this year, which is really nice to see early on. And hopefully he continues that. And with him playing like he did, it just opens up things for other players. There was that one moment where he was on the side, I think it was with Trey Galloway, and he gave the ball to Trey and then immediately tried to cut. And both players, because he's been playing so good, went with him on that cut, which was then just an easy pass to Trey Galloway, who was wide open and made the 3 that he did. So a great game, and hopefully he can carry over that. Your thoughts on McKenzie's game?
Yeah, I think, we think back to a season ago, early last year, where he was really struggling out of the gate, and how far he's come in a season. Obviously, the talent's always been there, right? And the guy that specifically offensively has just really, really taken huge strides for IU. But I think, yeah, he got lost a little bit on defense at times, but I felt the overall engagement was there from him last night. I think he almost had a double-double. I think he pulled down 9 rebounds, which I just think he was the one real bright spot yesterday, offensively. And I think if he continues to perform at this level, he's got the skill set. He can, I get that it's game 1, but you look at what we saw from the stretch down him last year and what he's got this year. His name's going to be in Big Ten Player of the Year consideration if he continues to play at this level. He's just that good. He's that talented. So it's nice to have that type of weapon. Now if you can just get the guys around him to kind of, get some familiarity with each other and start playing with a little more. It still looks a little clogged, right? And it's just tough, right? I mean, you've got a guy with McKenzie's size who, you look at him, you're like, okay, that's a 4, but no, he's playing a 3. And then you've got 2 other big guys. It's just going to take a little bit of time, right? It's going to look clunky for a while, I think. And everybody probably hears that and says, well, it looked clunky all of last season. It's like, what makes you think it's going to get fixed this year? I think we've got a lot more talented guards this year. So that's my one falling grace. But I thought McKenzie, he continues to play at this level. We're going to have a chance in a lot of games. It was really nice to see him come out like this. And he was just a stud. So I think he had 13 points in a 3-minute span early in the game. I think I heard them mention. So being able to score at that rate, I mean, we haven't had a weapon like that outside of Trace Jackson Davis for some time. So it's nice. It's nice to see that type of performance.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many points he had in that, but yeah, IU kind of finished the first half in a 13-3 run, and he was very lots of those points, needless to say, probably came from him in that stretch. I'd have to dive a little deeper to see exactly how much that is. But you started to talk about the guards, and we'll shift to them there. I think Rice got a little too fast at the beginning of the game, got started a little too quick, trying to do a little too much. Kind of led to 4 turnovers for him in the first half. He did clean that up, though. Just 1 turnover in the second half. Beyond the turnovers, looking at his stat line, I think that's kind of a good average that we can hope to see from him this year. With the other, obviously, positions and people we have around him. Again, it's hard to think about this and look at a point guard stats and want more points than this, but I think this is kind of an average to higher average as far as shooting wise that we can expect from him, because we don't need a player like we needed last year at point guard scoring wise. But again, it's going to be nice if he is, but he's going to finish with 11 points, 3 for 7 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3-point line. So good to see that he had that 3-pointer fall for him, and then was a perfect 4 for 4 when he did get to the charity stripe, which is, again, I like that stat line for him. I like the way he contribute. Obviously, you'd want to see a few more assists, him leading kind of the team in assist-wise. Hold on as I bring that up. Did not note in my notes how many assists he had. He had 4 assists, so a pretty good assist number for him. And I would say just an average game from Rice. His defense was good as well. Didn't feel as concerned on that end from him. What were your kind of general thoughts on Rice?
Yeah, I thought Miles Rice was fine. I thought, obviously, we've seen glimpses from him that he looks really, really good, specifically offensively, and that may have, from a statistical stat standpoint last night, might have not looked like the case, but you still saw it in flashes, right? His burst of speed, his ability to get to the basket. I think offensively down the stretch, he started to work that pick and roll with Malik Renew, and just the intangibles he brings, I think were there. Now, again, we might not see it in his stats, right? 11 points and 1 for 2 from 3 and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think he played an okay point guard last night, and you still saw, like, okay, this guy's got all the ability in the world, right, to be what we've seen in glimpses. I mean, you saw what he went down and did in Tennessee, right? I think he's going to be a guy we love all season, right? He's going to have, if this is a quiet Miles Rice game, I think you take it, right? I think this is probably a floor type game for him, and there's going to be games where he's playing the role that Mackenzie Mbako played last night, and he's the one who's shining offensively and the one that's carrying us to a win. He's got that type of ability. Last night it was Mackenzie's night. When we play again, it might be Miles Rice's night. But again, if this is his ceiling, we're just fine, because he had a game last night that we were, I think we would have taken on any given night from a guard last year. So, you take it and know that he's probably going to have brighter games here moving forward.
Well, and the thing I would say that lacked for the other games that we've seen so far is his downhill ability wasn't quite there, and I think that's part of the competition. SIUE played a lot of quick guys, and they were very handsy at drivers, letting a lot of hand check fouls kind of go by the wayside. You'd see drives by a lot of guys on slow replay, and you'd see an arm up and underneath in their armpit kind of thing, searching for the ball. So refs letting that kind of go, which was detrimental to him kind of getting his going downhill. But like you said, watching the game, and before I even looked at the stats for him, I thought he just, like you said, just had that okay game, and seeing the stats kind of surprised me a little bit on this game. Someone whose stats don't look the greatest for him, but we saw good play from him that we talked about a little bit earlier, is Carlisle. I think he's still trying to find what his game is with this team offensively. Last year on Stanford's team, he was their leading scorer. He had all the pressure on him to be producing a lot of points for the team, and that's not the case on this team. For now, his best contribution can be what we saw kind of last night on that defensive end when his offense is still trying to find his way. He just needs to be the guy setting that tone on defense, getting up in the grill, getting in that beautiful defensive stance that he had, staying with his guy. He's disciplined as well when he's in there. A lot of guys end up fouling, but just liked what he did in that regard. It's just the offensive side that he struggles. No points, 0 for 4 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3. His 3-point shot doesn't look the greatest, but someone that if he just needs to see it go in, I think, and just needs to find that rhythm. And I think he will. Doesn't and is only scoring 6, 7, 8 single digits in games for IU. As long as he can bring this on the defensive end, IU will be fine. What are your kind of thoughts so far on Carlisle?
Yeah, he's. I mean, obviously, you know, and just looking into his time at Stanford, and you know, he was a little bit offensively inefficient there as well, and I don't think to the point where you put up zeros across the board, you know. But so last night was a little bit concerning. I think it's you know, you need a little bit more than that, and again, game one, right? Trying to you know, you keep that in consideration. It's game one. You never want to see somebody with his type of experience and skill set put zeros up across the board, because when you combine that with what we'll get into with our bench scoring, it's like, okay, let's not go down this path again. So I think until proven otherwise, this game needs to be an outlier. I don't think you're going to see this type of inefficiency from a guy with his skill set. I mean, it's one thing to just be putting a freshman out there that has no experience, that comes in highly touted and hope for the best. This guy's proven it at the Division I level to a very high level. So we know what he can do, right? So I think that's what gives me a little bit of peace of mind that this is going to be the outlier. First game, right? And I think you're going to get more from him moving forward. Now, I do worry just a little bit about when you look at just in his season last year, how offensively inefficient he was. He'd have games where he'd put up a lot of points. He'd have games where he was really quiet. You know, we're going to have to clean up the offense a little bit around him to be able to absorb some of that to where it doesn't stick out like it did last night. So I think everybody left last night's games, you kind of thinking, man, the offense looked bad. Carlisle looked bad. What's going on, right? When the offense looks good and Carlisle has a quiet game, I don't think it's going to stick out as much as it did last night, because we've got that skill set around him. We just need to clean it up. So again, take it with a bit of grain of salt. Last night, think that we'll probably clean it up. I thought he was pretty good defensively, put up a lot of good looks, and I think they'll probably start to fall here soon. So yeah, rough game for him, but I think we see it look different here in the near future.
And Martha, again, with the perfect segue within your talking points there. I was going to head to the bench next. So someone that I think is very similar to Carlisle's kind of situation that we'll talk about as we dive into the bench a little bit is Luke Goody. I think he's just someone that is just trying to find his way offensively and is just one of those players that, as I watch this game, you just hope and will for the ball to go in for him once. And you just kind of feel like it's the situation where it's going to be like the floodgates for him. Just that confidence of getting one to fall. Not to say that he's not contributing in other ways for this team when he's in there, because he is a great kind of, as we've said before, I will continue to say that he's going to be the mature kind of mature leader and kind of glue guy that comes in off the bench for IU and does those off-stat things. But again, you're seeing zeros across the board for him, 0 for 3 from the field, shot 2 threes and missed both of those. And it's kind of the Miller Kopp type of situation when he first kind of came, where you're here to make threes and you're struggling to do that. So tough to see that kind of thing go. And he finishes the game in the negative as far as plus minuses. And again, this is not something that I'm trying to say about him overall, and that he's not going to come out of this, because I think he will, and he's going to impact the game, like I said, in different ways. But just just something you hope for more. You hope for the future, and you hope catchphrase of the game of the show. This is just those jitters, and who will work through it. Your kind of thoughts on Goody?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit rinse and repeat with what we said about Cannon Carlisle. I mean, Luke Goody's 4 years of Big Ten experience, three or four, obviously at Illinois, and we know what Luke Goody can do. I even more so than we know what Cannon Carlisle can do. We've played against Luke. We watched Luke play a lot of basketball. We know that he's a shooter, and shooters are going to continue to shoot. I think he's always going to be a guy that plays 20 plus minutes for Indiana. So I think you hope to get that 6 to 10 to 12 points from him on any given night, and I think you will. Again, a victim of the offense and the sloppiness and missing a lot of shots. He's one of many in that scenario. So, but he had good looks, and those good looks are going to fall. It's game one. I just think that it was a little out of sorts offensively last night. And again, I think with the type of offense that we play, with the bodies we have on the court, it's going to look that way until we find a little bit of groove. And once we do, I think you're going to see some of these guys start to play. But Luke Goody's going to be a huge part of what this team does this season. Obviously, with his experience, you might even see him get some spot starts. I mean, he's a guy that's going to be probably first off the bench in many cases, first or second with Trey Galloway. So, you take so much of this with a grain of salt, just it being game one. I know we like to deep dive into this. If this was game 3 or 4 and, he's struggling offensively for that long of a time frame, then it's different. But this is game one. And you think back to the Hoosier hysteria scrimmage, Luke Goody was looked the best offensively on the court, right? So there's going to be days where different guys step up. It wasn't Luke's night last night. It wasn't Cannon Carlisle's night last night, but there's going to be nights when it is, and I think those are probably right around the corner.
Yep. And I think Trey Galloway, we need to speak on him, is still a little bit of a hitch behind. You can tell he's still trying to come back. Obviously, the big stat, though, that stands out when you look at his line is those 9 assists, lead the team. And that's a mature, smart player that you have. He appears to not be back to his slashing, get to the basket, little runner self that he is, although he did get a little bit of one of those running shots that he is really good at doing. But in just 17 minutes to get 9 assists like he did and go 2 for 2 from the field, so be efficient, and 1 3-point shot that he made at that play that we spoke about earlier where he got open. Not sure you can ask for more for him right now, and where he is coming off an off-season surgery. But there was at least a good bright side at the end, and what kind of padded a little bit of those assist numbers for him in those great pick and roll moments with Ballo, dribbling, getting the lobs to him, putting him in great positions, and just kind of Trey's bread and butter and what he can do. So good to see him kind of get his feet wet and find some of those rhythm things that he can do, but still think obviously that he's on the way back up. He's on the mend still, and still finding that game speed but his leadership and that kind of standpoint is going to be something that when IU's down, we are going to call upon. And the idea of this team being behind and needing some baskets and needing leadership out there to calm things, I think that's times that we will see Miles Rice and Trey Galloway in there together, kind of righting the ship and getting us settled in. Your thought on Trey?
I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think that sometimes it gets lost that, a few short months ago, he had kind of a pretty major knee surgery, right? I mean, obviously it's not a torn ACL or something that critical, but he had knee surgery that shelved him for a couple months, and I think you can tell. And obviously you combine that with the fact that he's now he's playing a ton of minutes last year, starter for us out of necessity. Now he's 5th or 6th, coming off the bench, not playing nearly as many minutes. To me, I don't think he has that Trey Galloway bounce quite yet. Easy for me to say from my couch, but he looks, maybe a step slower this season, or maybe like he's still working his way back into shape, which when you combined all those factors, again, dude had major knee surgery, during the off season. So it's gonna take a little bit of time, right? I think, and if that's the Trey we get, right, and I think it's just going to continue to ramp up and ramp up and ramp up as he works his way back into playing shape and playing form and gets comfortable with that knee and comfortable with his body. I think it's going to be fine, right? He was still the same Trey, running around, moving around, and sometimes his greatest strength can sometimes be a weakness. I remember late in the game or at some point in the second half where he saved that ball right to the other team and they had a breakaway dunk where, here he is diving into the stands, trying to make a play for IU, but it goes the wrong way. So sometimes he can be, get to the point where there's that thin line of being really, really aggressive and making good play to being overly aggressive, and it puts us in a rough situations. But that's Trey Galloway, and you take him any day of the week. Obviously, we know what he brings to the table, and he's going to be huge for us as we move forward.
Yeah, the rest of the players I kind of want to lump together, and we'll speak briefly about each one, is first Tucker, coming off a great game that he had last game, and I think one thing he does not lack for is confidence. And I think in this game, maybe a little too much, seemed to kind of force things. He got pulled after one ill-advised 3-point shot. I think that was kind of a coaching moment right there, getting a little cavalier with the ball at that point. But just a freshman figuring things out, and he still is that stud in that mid-range and will be a contributor in games up and down. Again, it feels like a broken record saying that with a lot of these players, because not everyone's going to get the minutes or those points to be those high moment contributors for IU. But we will look to see who is on each game going to have that hot hand, and it doesn't mean that everyone else is going to be able to share it equally. We didn't talk about Renew either. I think he had an all right game. I think he also tried to force things a little bit. There was one possession, and it's one of my biggest critiques for him. When he gets the ball on the block, he can get a little bit blinderish and want to decide immediately that he's going to go to the basket no matter what comes at him. And in that moment, he did have someone, I forgot who, but had someone wide open at the 3-point ready to receive that ball. But at that point, he had already made the decision that he was going to the basket, which led to a double / almost triple team on him and a turnover at that point. So want him to clean that up. But I think defensively, he's still doing pretty well, playing against some faster guys. He's doing a lot of switching on defense, and he's handling those assignments fairly well. And I think Ballo as well had a feast at the end, thanks to Trey Galloway. Should have contributed a little bit more and used his size maybe to get over these guys, but I think a little bit higher hitch of effort from the SIUE guys and that one player that came off the bench for them, just kind of having things click for himself led to kind of Ballo not having that big game that we've seen before. But again, it did the little things for IU. Your thoughts on any of the players maybe that we haven't spoken on?
Yeah, I think it's easy to kind of put them in one box just because nothing really stood out. I think this team, we're really trying to figure out what the identity is with this team, and with the ups and downs defensively, the ups and downs offensively. It's not jumped out at us yet. I think hoping to see a little bit more in spurts from Malik Renew and what he brings to the table. I thought down the stretch, right, he's still a guy that can go get you a basket. He had really good pick and roll down the stretch with really when we wanted to keep that separation, extend that separation. Because again, it matters, right? We look at last season and, our inability to put poor teams away early in the season could have been a reason why we weren't looked at more for the tournament down the stretch. So with this competition, you've got to have that separation. You've got to create that gap. And I think he made some plays down the stretch that allowed us to do so. He had one take to the basket where he missed it. He got his own rebound and was able to put it back in. So he's still a guy that I think when you need a bucket down low late in the game is going to get that for you. I think you just want to see some of that for the entire stretch of the game. Obviously we know what he brings to the table but yeah, I think it's easy. You just hope to get more, when we think about how this team had ups and downs. I think a lot of the guys you mentioned just contribute to that because they you didn't see complete games from them. So, and I don't think you saw a complete game from Indiana. And this is competition that I think we really hope to do so. So yeah, again, game one, it's going to look ugly. It did look ugly, but at the end of the day, we flush it. We take the 19-point win and we move forward.
Yeah, yeah. Broadly, quickly going over stats, 3-point shooting percentage was good. If you just want to look at that at 37.5%, but the volume was still not there for IU, going 6 for 16. Free throws, love that percentage number, 82%, 14 for 17. We'll see the team get to the charity stripe a good amount this year with how aggressive the point guards are for this team, and also just Ballo's pure size. Something obviously that he's not the best 3-point shooter, so he'll have to clean that up from what his past is, but he did go 3 for 4, 75% in this game. So hopefully that continues for him. Obviously the biggest glaring one is the 16 turnovers. Did not look good, but the 18 assists, 9 of which, like I said, came from Trey Galloway, are good things. So your thoughts on those stats, or any other stats that stand out for you?
I think the one thing, and I should have touched on this kind of when we were going over that last stretch of players, was just my concern with the bench production. You look at the plus minus of this roster. There wasn't one bench player that had a positive plus or minus. And when you combine Carlisle's goose egg with the bench, I mean, you've got a group of 6 players that you got 8 points from. And this feels eerily similar to last year, right? I mean, we're doing line change roster changes, and there's a lot of these guys you're not getting production from. So it's like you either need to shore down the bench or figure out. I mean, all these guys are really, really talented, and to not get anything out of them offensively is again, it's a very, very short window. But when you combine that short window with last year's big window, some of these concerns are kind of creeping over. I think our bench is a lot stronger than it was last year for obvious reasons, right? So, but you can't have many games where your bench gives you this type of production and hope to compete, especially as the competition. I mean, we're going to be playing down in the Bahamas soon with a lineup that's really, really strong. You've got to get that. You've got to get better bench production. I think we will, right? So that's the one that stuck out to me. It was like, holy cow, our bench gave us. I mean, outside of Trey's 6 points, really gave us nothing last night. So, yeah, hope to have better production there. I think you'll probably see the maybe the lineup shorten up a little bit as we move down the stretch until we get to the Bahamas. But yeah, I think obviously things cleaned up a little bit in the second half. Turnovers were a major concern in the first half. It was a little bit better in the second half, but yeah, not a lot that sticks out to you from the positive standpoint. Just some stuff that I think we need to clean up, and some stuff that we will.
Yep. And first effort at this, you left us a little early on the previous show that we were on, but have to give a shout, obviously, to Hoosier Ticket Project. Not a sponsor, but something that needs to be shouted out on this program and screamed at, especially when sports are going so great for IU. Tell the folks about Hoosier Ticket Project and how they can donate tickets.
Absolutely. It has been, as far as men's and women's basketball, a record-setting. We've had record-setting numbers of ticket donations. It has been outstanding to see, and the beauty of it is that we've partnered with some local Bloomington nonprofit youth programs that have allowed us to find a lot of good homes. And that's the beauty of playing some of these teams early in the season. Is these are games that a lot of folks kind of find optional on whether they want to attend, but they found us as a home to give tickets to, and we're making sure there's butts in the seats, and they're deserving butts that are in those seats. So it's awesome to see. And as the season goes on, obviously donations in terms of tickets will decrease. So if there are any games that you do have tickets for, visit our website, HoosierTicketProject.org. We'll walk you through how to donate those tickets, how you can help us. They're going to go to deserving folks that either haven't been to a game or don't have the means to go to a game. So consider us as we move forward. Same goes for football. Usually by this time during football season, we are drowning in tickets. We have none for Michigan, none for Purdue, and that's a good problem. I would not trade that for anything. But people are going to games, and it's beautiful to see. But again, if there's any extras or anybody has tickets, we've got a laundry list of people that want to go. So we've got 3 sports going right now. It's our busiest time of the season right now, in terms of trying to get people to games, and it's beautiful to see. Get to see some of the photos on our social media, so check those out. But you can always go to our website, HoosierTicketProject.org, to learn more about what we do, how you can help us, and all those good things. So thank you as always, Chad, for allowing me to bring that up.
Of course. Great thing. Great to be out there. Great to go to these games. And I myself am making that journey up tomorrow. I'm going to leave super early. It's an hour drive for me to get up to Bloomington. So excited to be there on Sunday to watch the football game. If you see me out and around, please come up, say, hey, I'm going to bring some Hoosier Morning After stickers. Ones you've seen around like this. Sorry, those that are listening can't see this, but I will have some of those with me. So please come up, say, hey, I'll give you a sticker and everything like that. Great to talk to the fans. And then I'll also be going to the Eastern Illinois basketball game as well. So that'll be exciting to be able to catch up both sports in one visit for me, as it's harder to get up to Bloomington to these games. But give me your closing thoughts on this game.
Are you so? First off,
Yes.
are you tailgating in a specific area on Sunday that people need to know?
I'm going to bounce around. I feel like I have to go see Adam and see his whole setup with him and Amanda. I may swing by and see Galen, and then I've got a good high school buddy that I will be. Probably end up in with him and stuff towards the end of the game. I'll go by IU Artifacts. He says he usually tailgates near the walk. I know Scott from Crimson Cast is going to have his setup. So I'll be bouncing all over the place. Find me on Twitter. I'll post pictures.
I love it.
Go ahead.
I love it. You're a man of the people. I love it.
It's so many people that I want to see. I don't get up enough or often enough. So I want to squeeze in seeing as many of the great folks that I've met through being an IU fan as I can. So give me your closing thoughts then.
Yes, and Megan makes a good point in the chat. You did say the football game is on Sunday. I think it's on Saturday. Just don't try to go.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And hey, rain chances have diminished. I've definitely been keeping my eye on that as we go. So weather's beautiful. Cross your fingers, do your rain dances.
It's not your Indiana football of old. The last 2 weeks have been like nothing I've ever seen. Nick in the chat can attest to this. It's a different vibe. It's a different game day down there, and I'm anxious to hear your thoughts. And I know we're getting a little off topic. I apologize, but I'm anxious to hear your thoughts after the game, because it's different, and I think you'll find it beautiful. Anyway, closing thoughts. Game 1, right? And I understand the vibe, the concern, off of last season, when kind of all of our hope is riding on kind of the talent we've added and things looking different, and maybe it doesn't look the version of different we think it should right now, but let it breathe. I tend to lean right now on the fact that we've got so many new faces. You've got 2 brand new guards, one brand new front court player, just a lot of guys that are playing, a lot of new guys that are playing a lot of minutes for us. And you look at what we're able to go down and do at Tennessee, and it's not always going to look pretty. It's never going to when you play 3 bigs on the court at the same time, but we're talented offensively, and I think we just need to kind of put our hope in what this is going to continue to look like as we improve. I'm anxious to see how we bounce back. That's always a good indicator on improvement and what set in, and focusing on kind of what went wrong. I think you'll see a much cleaner game. In the next game, you'll see some guys that had some rough games, probably have some good games, and I'm anxious to see. The good news is we get to turn around and do it again on Sunday. So I'm excited to see how this team bounces back. I think our reflection Monday morning is going to be much more important than what it is now, because you'll be able to focus on some trends at that point. Hopefully there aren't too many negative trends, but just again, I'm anxious to see this team come back out, and I think we'll see some better basketball.
Yeah, and I think this game, a game like this, I think it puts a little more pressure on Sunday's game, I should say. We need to blow out Eastern Illinois. It was these games last year that in the end, when we were sitting on the bubble like we were, kind of hurt us that we didn't blow out the teams like we should have. So we need to blow out Eastern Illinois a little bit more because the non-con is not looking great. Obviously, we'll get a little in depth about it more as we move closer to the battle at Atlantis, because that has a lot of pressure as well for IU to win that first game against Louisville and get on the winner's bracket side for a resume standpoint. But as far as the play that you're seeing on the court, like we said, catchphrase, it's the first game. Lots of things to clean up, lots of tape for the coaches to look at and see moving forward, but a lot of good positives that we saw as well. Mackenzie just building and going to be the stud and a major focal point for this IU offense and this team moving forward. Great to see that. Great to see what he can do. Great to see Trey showing glimpses of what he can be moving forward. And then great to see players that aren't quite hitting things on the offensive side, like Carlisle, still staying engaged and not hanging his head, but finding his way on defense and finding spots that he can contribute for the team and be someone that contributes in a positive way and affects the game. So, like I said, some good to take, some bad to take, but the W's in the column right now, and we move on to the next game. So that's about it for this game. So thank you for being with us. We'll be back again. I'll probably be delaying that next show, not Monday, but Tuesday, but stand by on Twitter to find out that information. IU plays again Sunday at 12 against Eastern Illinois. That is, I believe, a BTN Plus covered game, so you'll have to watch it and find it there. Thank you for being with us. I am your host, Chad Schwarzkopf. Find me on Twitter at General Chadwick. Martha here with me. You can find Martha at the Mop Lady on Twitter. Thank you for being with us. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe for us. If you're listening on the different podcast streams as well, if they have a rating or a way to comment, please do so. I appreciate seeing that. Until then, guys, go out there, have yourself a wonderful day.
As always, go Hoosiers.